So we're continuing on the theme, as I was saying. Trying to develop your topic. So hopefully by now, as we've discussed, you've got your general area. But what is your research question? As I said, this is the most difficult thing to define and to get to. So this lecture and seminar is about helping you work towards getting a more refined question. And then from next week we'll begin looking at some of the methodologies that can be used. We'll cover some today where appropriate, but next week we'll begin looking at methodologies. So by next week you need to have a reasonable idea of your question to have a reasonable chance of beginning to apply that to the methodologies. Okay. So a good research question defines the investigations, sets the boundaries, and provides direction. Okay, it gives you clarity. It gives you what are you investigating. It's the definition. It's the specific focus that you need. Addictions, what is your question within that area becomes. Okay, relapse prevention. Does stress management help reduce the frequency of relapse? So you move from a general to a topic to a question. And that's constantly what you're doing. You're going from your general area you've chosen to your topic area to your research question each time. And your research question setting the limits. It sets the boundaries. This is what I'm looking at. Not that, not that, this area only. It's like directing the spotlight. Where is the spotlight? What is your lens of your research camera looking at? Is it a telephoto lens? Is it a microscope? What kind of lens are you using in your view as well will determine what you're looking at. How close. If you're looking at things in a microscopic sense, and you're looking at them in a lot of detail, how close are you looking at it? Or are you looking at it in a landscape? You're using a wide angle lens to capture the broad landscape of what's going on with the topic. Okay? And it provides direction in terms of what are the specific things you need to look for, find, and go with. So, if you're finding it difficult, think about really what turns you on academically. Okay? What makes you passionate? What are you interested in? What makes you pick up that book and read it? From a young age, I always had an interest in addictions. And that's everything and anything I did always involved going towards that area of work. Do you have something similar? You know, from 12, I was interested in addictions because a particular movie influenced me. I thought, I can do that work. That's what I want to do. So I got passionate about it. And from then onwards, I worked with addictions until a few years ago. So you hone in on your passions. Find out what is it that gets you out of bed in the morning type idea. What made you want to do counseling? What's your passion around counseling? Can you hone in on that as an area? And what are you curious about? Your curiosity. What are you curious about? What is it that you're sitting with in terms of a question each time? Can the creative arts help you? Have you seen a movie? Been to a show? Heard a radio program that might stimulate an idea? And think from the right side of your brain. Mind map it. Don't think logically always about this. Be creative in this stage. Think widely and be creative in your thinking. Because it might open up a possibility you hadn't thought about. Or an area that's not really been covered in the research. So, where do you get your ideas from? 4 main areas. The existing research literature, and that's the most important area. That will tell you what's been done, what is being done, and by default, what is not being covered. What are they not speaking about? If you've got a particular area, you've got a particular interest, and you've looked at it and you thought, hang on, but they're not doing this. They're not discussing this area. is what is conspicuous by its absence, in other words. Policy and practice initiatives, so the whole IAPT, improving access to psychological therapies, was a policy and practice initiative by the government. Where is that now? Has it worked? Hasn't it worked? What are the new policies to come up? We're going into an election. What are they all promising? Will they deliver? Not. What we are promised are cuts, further cuts. What impact will that have on counselling? I don't know. Okay, so are there policies and things happening out there that need investigation? If you're that kind of person that can read policy and make sense of policy, that's an area that often needs research to look at how policy changes. What are the impacts of policy changes, possibly? Do you have personal contact with a particular area? Disabilities, a particular illness, a particular client group? What is that doing? What is that saying about where you are sitting and the interest you have? And as I say, if you have that level of personal contact, can you use that as a research base? Is it an area that you're working in, a support group you're part of? Is it where you're doing a placement? Use those. And what are your personal burning questions? Do you have something in particular you want to research about a subjective experience of? Yeah. If you've undergone a particular procedure or had a particular experience, you might want to be able to kind of explore that with other people who have had similar experiences. So, when you're looking at your research, you need to be aware of what meanings and biases that you hold. You need to avoid sources of bias. Okay, do not make your research a self-fulfilling prophecy, that you will find what you want to find, because it will be seen by others. You might not see it. Sometimes we become so blinkered in our research that we determine to prove X is Y. We prove it, even though the evidence doesn't actually stack up against it, because you've got a bias against it. But the other reasons for having a personal interest in your research is it makes it more alive and interesting. It's something that you're drawn to. You can draw on your own emotional understanding. Okay? And knowledge is intrinsically linked to personal interests and values. You develop your knowledge out of interest of what you're interested in and areas you want to grow and develop. You don't go and read about stuff you're not interested in. So draw on the areas you're interested in. Yeah? What is it that makes you passionate? Is there an area of work you would like to go into down the line? Develop your knowledge and skills around that area then. So there must be a personal meaning in research, because otherwise you'll get so bloody bored with it you won't finish it. You'll also lose that creative spark that comes with having an interest in the piece of research you're doing. So if you're defining a dissertation just to get the dissertation done, just be careful. You might not get there, because you'll get too bored and you won't pick up on the signposts of interesting material. You'll only do a very basic research process. When you've got an interest in something, you're reading slightly wider, you're reading slightly broader, you'll pick up on those signposts, because you'll be interested. Oh, what's that about? I haven't seen that before. Rather than just passing you by. So map. Draw it out. Map. Use mind maps. Do drawings. Put up pictures. Find ways of conceptualizing your research. Okay? So, what are your interests? So this person happens to be interested in the environment, in youth work, and religion. Are there areas in that he can think of studying? So under youth, he's thinking there's lots of youth suicide, pop culture, sexuality, self-esteem. Within the environment, community awareness, community commitment, sustainable development, catchment management or religion changing, atheism, power and control in religion. You know, Map out your areas of interests, and then map what are the sub-areas that might be of use for you. Sure, this is just an example. But you can find areas of interest that you can link to counselling. Like, for example, I've recently got an allotment, and on the allotment where I am is the Peace Garden, who run community-based workshops for refugees and people with mental and enduring mental health problems. And it's used as a community resource. There's a research project waiting to happen. How does gardening therapy work? It exists. They're all around. So, think about music therapy. Is that what you're thinking about? Is music therapy? Movement therapy, dance therapy, physical therapy. You're looking at movement, at music, at drama therapy, psychodrama, music therapies, that whole area. Have a look in those areas. And you can find something there. Okay? As I say, you're looking at the 3 areas of counseling: the client, the process, the counselor. So don't just get stuck in one. Be broad about all the areas. And if you've got an area and it's not specifically counseling related, but it has bearing on counseling in terms of informing about a condition or a subject or a problem, that still can be looked at. We need to know about X, Y, and Z issues. So those are related. Psychology type subjects will be accepted. Okay, I don't want you guys to get too narrow a focus. Yeah. Dream, and that you'll be looking from a Jungian or Freudian analysis of dream analysis, dream work. How is dream work done in counseling? What do clients think of dreams, or counselors? There's lots of work has been done on dreams. So that's what you need to do. But as you say, you need to think about the practicalities. Is it an appropriate topic? Can you get support for your supervisory support? Will they understand what you're talking about? And if funding is needed, and what is the commitment required to doing a particular piece of work? Okay? Time, commitment, people, more than anything else. As I said before, try and find a project where you don't have to travel to the other ends of the earth to do. Find something that's local. Something that's part of your everyday life, if you can. There are plenty of opportunities. When I think about my sorts of topics, if I had to do a topic at this point, apart from the whole school and the teaching of counseling that I could possibly look at, if I was in your shoes and learning it, the areas of interest I've got are cycling, psychology of cycling, the health benefits of cycling, why people are so aggressive towards cyclists. Yeah. Do I have a bias? Gardening, allotments, all of that. I found one, the Peace Garden I could possibly do. And couple therapy is the area that I'm interested in. I like working with couples and their issues involved. But then if you've got your own areas, you've got churches, you've got community groups, you've got sports groups, think about what can you draw on. The health benefits of being a football member, a member of a football club, playing football every Saturday. What are the psychological benefits of that, and how this can be utilized in whatever, depending on the perspective you take. So you're going to need to move from your interesting topic to a researchable question. And so you begin to look at your research from particular angles and trying to get a sense of where it's coming from. So you build on your personal experience, if you can, from that. So you're sitting with an experience of working with some clients, and you're sitting with a question about a particular group. Like my paper on affairs. I suddenly had a whole lot of affairs, and I needed to make sense of them. So that was coming from personal experience. What theory interests you? What questions are coming out of theory that are unanswered, or you're sitting unsure about? What are your observations from just seeing things? If you're working in a school or you're at a clinic and you see a particular process happening. Maybe it's in a team meeting or the group supervision. Okay? There's a process happening that needs some questioning or reflection on or exploration. Does the group supervision work with very experienced people and trainees in it or not? Should they have a separate one for trainees? Are the trainees ignored or treated in a very condescending manner? There's various ways in which things like that can be investigated. What are their contemporary issues? What's in the forefront in the news? What's the government pushing? What's the headlines, in other words? What are the latest headlines around health issues? What are you aware of? NHS? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, the most recent in the news was mental health, the funding of mental health, and the impacts around that and how that's going to operate. So again, coming back to the literature and what you've been reading. So narrowing, clarifying and redefining your question is an essential part of the research process. Forming the right question is an iterative process that is informed by reading and doing at all stages. So it feeds back in on itself. Okay? Feedback on itself. It informs itself as you read, so you clarify your question. Is it this or is it that I'm actually looking at? Okay? Do I need to step back? Do I need more detail? Do I need less detail? Do I need to focus on that? Your reading and your questioning will determine your eventual question. So you don't set your question and that's it. You'll refine and redefine your question until you get to a final one. So don't get too wedded to your first topic, because you might give it up. It might evolve, and that's good. As we said before, this is the contextual process. You have an idea, you form a question, you do readings, it gives you further ideas, it informs you how you're going to approach it. It's a constant feedback loop process, informing itself over and over. And even as once you're on your project and you're going along, new questions will come to mind. Do not go down that route. Put them aside, make note of them, because in your conclusion and recommendations, you can say further research in the areas of are needed, or questions about. Okay? But once you've started your topic, you've got to maintain your focus. Don't get distracted on new interesting ideas. Otherwise you'll never finish your topic. Okay, not all questions are researchable, as we know. Good research question is narrow, focus of inquiry, so it becomes a question that can be answered within the time available. Straightforward, what we're saying. Identify as many questions that can be asked about the topic. So once you've got a topic, throw out, brainstorm your questions. What are the questions this topic generates for you? Unfold and unpack the most promising questions into their sub-questions. So again, you're taking from general to broad questions to sub-questions. That's what you're doing continuously. And that's what I'm doing with you when you're throwing out topics. I'm trying to take you from your topic to your question to the sub-question to your specific question. It's not that I'm throwing your ideas out. I'm trying to get you to think it through. What specifically about that thing are you wanting to investigate? Okay? That only comes with questioning your question. And reading. Yes. And so the original big question is normally too big to be answered within a single question. So how do you deconstruct your topic? Start writing. Write things down. Begin. Write as if you've written the paper. What are you saying? What are you talking about? Okay? Write down as much of the topic that you know and what you feel you need to know. What is it that I don't know? What I know is what I don't know. And so don't know areas that are areas of investigation for yourself. Are those research questions because you don't know, or is it just that you haven't read in that area? Okay. Use your imagination, generate as many aspects as possible on the topic. Okay. And be creative, use mind mapping, Flower it out. Don't discard anything. Try out alternative theoretical perspectives. Okay, again, it's like the lens. What lens are you using? Is it the zoom lens? Is it a microscope? Is it a landscape? Is it a standard lens? What theory and what does that bring you? What does CBT focus on this bring you? What does a psychodynamic focus bring you? What would a person-centered approach bring you? A feminist, a systemic? Each of these will provide a different perspective. They're each different kinds of cameras looking at the same topic from a different angle, a different level, a different depth. And one of them might stand out for saying, that's what I want to know. You need to be critical and questioning in this process. So once you got a question, you need to ask what's not answered in this question. What's the question about the question? And then go back to your map. Revisit it. Re-look at it. So this person seems to have chosen to do youth work, and so they've got a whole range of things looking at media, parents, peers, poor self-esteem seems to be the main topic in young girls. So what goes with that? Right? Oh, what role do parents play? What role does media play? Do young girls have an unrealistic perception of normal? Is the question that they're sitting with. So that's informing sort of those ideas. Peers attracted to opposite sex, desire to be popular, school ridicule. Do parents teach their daughters that worth is dependent on external beauty? Those are the questions they're sitting with. So they're exploring and coming up with possible topics. Yeah. Yeah, it's broad, it's vague. They haven't got down to it, but they've now got out of some broader areas. They've now got maybe a little more specific questions. They've got a more specific topic. What role do parents play, or self-esteem, or media perceptions of beauty? Okay? And that's how you can do it. If you're not at that stage, will help you get to your topic. So out of there, you choose one. At the end of the day, you have to make a choice and stick with it. Okay? Just commit to one at a certain point and stay with it. And that will keep your focus, and then you'll keep your reading going in. Okay? You'll probably have numerous, equally valid, equally researchable topics, areas, and ideas. You can't do them all. Okay? So make sure you choose one at the end of the day. And why? How do you choose one? Do you like it? Is it researchable? And is it doable within the time? That's it. There's no magic formula about choosing your topic. It's an area of your interest. And for me, will it meet the learning outcomes? So other ways of getting down to a researchable question, think about the relevance of meta theory. Okay, so these are the broader theories: feminism, multiculturalism, social justice, Marxism. These are all larger, they're theories about theories, they're theories about society, they're broader discussion things that might give you a different focus or as a grounding to your overall project. Okay. You might want to think of therapy from the point of view of Foucault, of power and control. What are the power and control issues in therapy? Because there are. Okay. It's not one we like to talk about, because we don't see counseling as one of power and control, but there is power and control in therapy.
Is the dissertation divided into chapters?
Yes. Dissertation has chapters. So your introduction, your methodology, your results, your discussion, your conclusion are the main chapters. The introduction includes your literature review. Try out alternative methodological perspectives. So what method? So you've got a topic, you've got an idea. How would you investigate this becomes your next broad question. How would I find out? As I say, what is your question? What would the answer look like? How will you gather that answer? Is it doable? Is the methodology doable in broad terms? Or I'm going to need to do X. Is this within my means? If it requires using a particular kind of test, I'll need to know my subject's IQ test. You can't do it. You're not allowed to run IQ tests. Besides, it would take too bloody long. An IQ test takes 4 hours to complete. Okay? But this will give you a idea of whether it's doable, but also it will generate different views on the topic as well. If I'm doing an interview versus a questionnaire, well, what am I asking in the questionnaire that's different from the interview? It'll give you different perspectives each time, the methodology you use. If you're using an online questionnaire, an in-person questionnaire, one's handed out on paper, anonymous, not. What does each method tell you about the topic? Becomes important. Make use of images and metaphors. Oh, spelling, metaphors, that's my dragon. Pay attention to metaphors. It's not a mink coat, darling. This was done late last night. And images that rise in the discussion of your research topic as they provide a valid means of developing a comprehensive appreciation of the topic. So when you're talking about things, what are those metaphors, what are those ideas, what are those pictures that come to mind? You know, drug addicts and their relapse, temptation comes to mind. Why do they relapse? What tempts them to use again? So why would they want to drug? They've been to rehab, they've cleaned up their act, they know the consequences of using. So why do they use again? What tempts them? Yeah, there you got an alternative viewpoint of it. Okay, I'm looking at temptation, you're looking at rebellion. But those are metaphors that come to mind. These are pictures, these are ideas. We all tend to see addiction as a problem, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a statement of something else. That their solution has become their problem. Undertake the meaning of words. Understand or define the meaning of key words. Okay? You need to undertake a process of clarifying and defining the key words properly, because those will have different meanings from different theoretical perspectives. What is the sense of self from a Jungian perspective, Freudian perspective, a CBT perspective? They'll have different definitions of the key terms, and you need to clarify how you are defining the concept you are investigating. And it will also give you the idea of where am I going, what am I researching, what is the actual topic. So by defining and spending time, well, what does relapse mean? What does, at what point has somebody relapsed? In a relapse cycle, when has the person relapsed? When they use the drugs? Or is that the end point of the relapse cycle? Relapse begins quite some time before they actually use. So it depends on what you're defining. There's two definitions. When they begin thinking about using, to the point of where they begin using, they're both relapse points. So this is about making clarity of your key topics, your key areas of and meanings and definitions of the topic. Think big, but act small. Okay? So you're keeping a big topic in mind, but you're focusing on one piece. How effective is counseling for clients referred by their GP in a primary healthcare setting? Great topic, but still too broad. Which clients? What counseling? What kind of healthcare setting? So you would narrow that down even further. So depressed clients referred for intensive CBT work becomes a more specific focus. or comparison between those referred to CBT and those referred for person-centered therapy. Okay. So the way in which you can narrow things down are in various ways. You can narrow the time parameters involved down. So clients referred between January and February, or in 2013, rather than just any client. You narrow your gap. Narrow the place parameters. Is the clients only from Newham area? Newham College students only. So you define your specific population as part of your sample. Yeah. No reason why you can't. You just have to define who and how and what, and how reliable that would be, what kind of answers you would get from it. But there's lots of, it's a whole new area of research utilizing the internet. Look, think of SurveyMonkey. That's internet-based research. Okay? Don't underestimate its impact and its ability to inform you. Make the person more specific. Who specifically are you researching? Men between the ages of 50 and 60, referred for depression from January 2013 to January 2014 at the GP surgery on Lockett Lane, Newham. Okay? You're narrowing it. Are you focusing on specific problems? So, what is it that you are specifically exploring and developing? Who is included and who is excluded? Okay? Who would not be part of your research project? Sometimes it's about stating the obvious. Okay? But sometimes you do need to state it because it's not always obvious in some of your research things. Be specific in terms of the method you're going to use and the techniques to gather the data. I'm going to use qualitative, quantitative. I'm going to do an interview. I'm going to do a semi-structured interview first. Okay, so maybe I don't do an interview. I can't get to see the people. Can I send them the questionnaires via the internet? What will the different elements be? How will that change what you're researching? So these are some of the ways in which you can narrow your topic down. The hypothesis dilemma. So a hypothesis is looking at relationships between variables. Okay, so if you're looking at does X affect Y, that's a relationship. You can then formulate a hypothesis. Gathering a person's experience about something does not involve a hypothesis. Unless you're looking at do these kinds of experiences lead to these kinds of outcomes? Then maybe there's a different element. If your question is descriptive or exploratory, a hypothesis is not needed. You don't put it in. Okay? So if we were describing something, a hypothesis is designed to express the relationship between variables. As X cause Y. Unless your topic, your research area is looking at a causative element, you don't have a hypothesis. So you're looking at people's experience of a roller coaster ride. You're not looking at X causing Y. But people feeling dizzy after a roller coaster ride, there's a hypothesis. People who go on a roller coaster ride will feel dizzy afterwards. That's your hypothesis. Which is very different when you're saying, how have they experienced their roller coaster ride? There's no hypothesis involved. Yeah, just don't ever put me on a roller coaster, people. Can't do them. So a hypothesis is not appropriate when you do not have a hunch or educated guess about the particular situation. You do not have defined variables. Okay? If you're looking at phenomenological questions, so this is chapter 9 in O'Leary's book, The Essential Guide to Doing Research, 2004. Your question centers on ethnographic study of a cultural group. Your aim is to gauge and research the process of collaborative change. Okay? The hypothesis is a very specific form of research where you are looking at a correlation between two things. Does X cause Y? And you're using variably statistics to predict whether that relationship exists or not. Does eating an apple a day keep the doctor away? Okay? That's a relationship. That's the variable. That's what you're thinking about. Everyone says, eat an apple a day and you'll keep the doctor away. Well, I eat an apple every day. I haven't been to a doctor in years, therefore it's right. So think about the questions. Is it the right question for you? Does it hold your interest? Can you manage your biases that you hold? The subjective interest and passion and preconceived ideas you might hold already about your topic. Okay. Is the question right for the field? Okay. The field of research. Is it a relevant question to ask? Will the findings be considered significant? Will it make a contribution? Is your question well articulated? Have you defined the terms and checked your assumptions? So that's the essence of it. At the end of the day, it needs to be a well articulated question, well defined, with your assumptions checked. Can information be collected in an attempt to answer the question? Do you have the skills and expertise to collect that information? If not, can they be developed? Will you be able to get it done within your time constraints? Is there a budgetary issue? Are there any ethical problems? Okay, throughout you do need to keep in mind ethical considerations. Paying clients to come to therapy approves attendance of therapy. Might be something you want to research. Well, they're paying other people to give up smoking and lose weight. Why don't we pay our clients to come to therapy? Yeah, because there's a huge dropout rate in therapy in the NHS. They don't come. There's these long waiting lists, and when they eventually get it, actually the problem's passed. They've resolved it one way or another, and they don't turn up. It'd be a very interesting project if one had access to it, is to look at those who were on the waiting list, and when therapy was eventually offered, and they never turned up or took it up, well, what happened to them? Did they even need therapy then? How were their issues resolved without therapy? Yes, they might not be. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole area of the waiting list. You know. So if you have a potential GP who's friendly, so do you get the tick in the no? Is it doable and researchable and people can give you support on it? It's generally more at master's level. Okay. Are you on the right track? What do the experts think? You know, is it relevant, important, and doable? And what you will find